Hi, this is Sebastian Braxton, and welcome back to Verse by Verse, Season 2. This is episode number 4, and we're in the book of Philemon, grappling with a book that was used to justify slavery in some people's arguments. Now, in verse 4, as Paul is writing this letter to Philemon, he begins in a space of gratitude. He says, "I thank my God, making mention of you always in my prayers." Now, this is huge because Paul is essentially trying to establish the relationship between him and Philemon. And this lets you know that the very beginning of removing polarization is to remove the dehumanization of another person who feels differently from you. Paul recognizes that he's coming into Philemon, who is a good friend of his, clearly, and we're going to see that even more developed throughout the book. But he doesn't want to begin with the issue, he wants to begin with the relationship. You see, if you are trying to confront someone, if you're trying to deal with a situation that you know is going to be a little bit tense, a little bit awkward, and very emotionally charged, do not lead with the problem, lead with the relationship. Lead with gratitude. And that's exactly what Paul does here. He says, "I thank my God." He doesn't say, "I thank Philemon," which means that he's acknowledging that God is the source of all good in other people. So when we approach individuals, because let's just be real, right? 100%. We, even within the faith community, can have issues with one another. There are many people who are like, I'm gonna sit on this side of the church because she's on that side of the church. So there's clearly issues even among those who have issues of faith. And this is something that even Jesus dealt with when he told the parable in Matthew 18 of the unforgiving servant, and talked about a servant who was willing to be forgiven by his master, but wasn't willing to forgive his fellow servant for a way lesser debt than what he was forgiven. And even in the Lord's Prayer, Jesus says that we should forgive those as we ourselves are forgiven. So in essence, our forgiveness from God is dependent on our ability to forgive other people. But to get back here on the point of Paul saying, "I thank my God, making mention of you always in my prayers," he raises a second point in confronting this issue. And that is the issue of prayer. You see, we need to make sure we keep that person in prayer no matter what, because let's just be truthful. Sometimes we don't talk to people until we have an issue with them. Sometimes we don't want to sit down with them and get to know them and really express our care and interest until there is a problem to address. So here's the very critical point to make from this particular verse. Do you know someone that you are thankful for? Is there someone in your life that you're like, I'm really filled with gratitude for this person's presence in my life? And think about the fact that one day you may be at odds with this person. You may have to bring something uncomfortable to them. And therefore, like the Apostle Paul, who teaches us in confronting this polarization, treat people as if they're human. It doesn't matter if they support a different presidential candidate. It doesn't matter if they feel differently on a very polarizing issue. First, approach them at the basis of a human being, as a person that you're thankful for, and look at the goodness that God has put inside that person. And by starting with that, you lay the best framework for a meaningful conversation.